So you can catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan scratch it. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. Catch it, match it, stash it in the cabinet. Listen to the chorus while let Ivan. This is real hip hop, we aiming for a classic. And if we can't approach it, screw it, we'll attack it. What you know about classic music?
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series. And this week, we're not doing a good pick. We're doing a very bad pick. We're doing August 3rd, 2020 episode of Raw, the debut of Raw Underground. I'm here with...
Chris, I guess.
Yeah, you claim I have a gun holding your head to do this retro. I don't think I don't know all your tricks. You've been trying to get out of this retro for a while now. I notice you're like, yeah, I'm not available today. I'm too busy. Like, you just don't. Let's be real. I know you had a party last week and stuff, but let's be real. You just did not want to do this retro. You're like, yeah.
I was forced.
You were not forced.
Gun to my head. You said, we're doing this whether you like it or not. Yeah. Buckaroo.
But it actually wasn't even me that said you were doing this. You're doing this in spite. So, but I don't know, in spite of, I don't know, in spite of me, in spite of the world. I don't know, but yeah. So we're doing the very first episode that Raw Underground premiered in, because NXT for some reason decided this stipulation's so awesome that they're gonna put it back. They're putting it back this week, but instead it's not called Raw Underground, it's NXT Underground, because they realized they fucked up and realized, like, yeah. You ever notice? Did you notice on NXT this week it wasn't called Raw Underground? It was called NXT Underground. Like,
I was like, why is it called Raw Underground if it's not Raw?
Yeah, so they changed
because
it.
Because I think Damon Kemp messed up and he said Raw Underground.
Yeah, but
so they just went with it.
Yeah, but so you don't blame Shawn Michaels then. You can blame Damon Kemp for the reason we're doing this fucking retro then.
I blame Damon Kemp for being terrible.
Yeah. He's not terrible. He's really good. Come on, man. Like, but that's why we're here. And there's a lot of shit on this Raw. I was originally going to come on here and talk about how this Raw isn't as bad as you remember it. Believe it or not, it's actually worse than you remember it. It's really bad. And we're going to go through this and talk about the show. But obviously, as you know, that we like to do, we like to, talk about what the state of the industry was like around this time. So we're going to do that again. Basically, you could just kind of take what we said in doing our Payback retro and just kind of apply it here. The pandemic is still heavily a thing. Not even close to slowing down by this point. WWE is still stuck in the Performance Center. They did up it. They did add like a PC crowd there, and some of the PC crowd members that are on this show actually are basically some of the standouts of NXT today. So, but yeah, they were still in the PC. They added fans. Obviously, the stories that you heard is that they would have to stand the whole time. They never got to sit down. They would just stand around and have to act all excited and everything like that. Did you ever hear the story? There was like 1 week they did tape-ins and they had to stand for like 8 hours type of thing. Like it was that bad.
It was bad.
But
it was really bad.
We talked about this AEW. Handled the pandemic. I think. Probably the best. Really, New Japan did, because they actually shut down for a bit. But, out of the ones that had to keep going, AEW probably did it the best. They had the fans ringside, and, it was at least not forced. They would occasionally cheer for the heels, occasionally cheer for the faces and stuff. I don't think by this point they had started putting fans back. I think that was still shortly coming though.
Because they went from no fans
yeah,
to wrestlers at ringside
yeah,
to minimal amount of fans to packed stadium.
yeah, and then
And that order.
AEW was at Daly's Place. This is when they Daly's Place pretty much became their home for like over a year type of thing. And then Impact. Obviously, this is when Impact started benefiting. We talked about it because WWE did the Black Wednesday releases. So basically, Impact benefited because they picked up most of the big stars in the Black Wednesday releases. They just had Slim. They were not even actually. It was about to happen actually because no, it just happened actually. Like Slammiversary that year just happened. All of the Black Wednesday releases, most of the big stars like debuted there. So that was awesome.
The Gallows and Anderson, I think, debuted on that show.
Eric Young
returned.
And he had a lot of returns, like the Motor City Machine Guns returned around that time. So Impact was about to like really break out and become like the number 4 wrestling company in the world again. New Japan had just come back. We talked about this. They made the really bad decision and put the IWGP Heavyweight title on Evil for no reason, and like everyone was just really questioning that, like what the hell happened. I think they did the G1 early too. I think they started doing the G1 around this time, just to kind of get people talking about the product again. NWA basically shut down at this time, and
to their detriment.
Yeah, they fucked up and said, "Yeah, you're under contract with us, but if you want to work other places and sign to other places, I'm fine with that." That fucked up Billy Corgan more than because all of the big stars like Eli Drake, Eddie Kingston, and Ricky Starks either went to WWE or AEW. And James Storm, he lost James Storm. He went to Impact Wrestling for like a while. So, that fucked up. Like honestly, the pandemic killed the NWA because all the big talents signed to WWE, AEW, Impact, and then then obviously they didn't do any shows for a while. They had to basically wait until the United Wrestling Network did Primetime Live, and they couldn't even that was basically what you saw the NWA. They just had the titles get defended over there and all that type of stuff, and then AAA was still fairly shut down. It was still doing okay, I guess. But it was pretty much, a bunch of wrestling companies started shutting down around this time. Jakawa, I think, shut down at this time. Evolve pretty much was shut down at this time because WWE brought out Evolve around this time. So, in the pandemic, it was not a good time to be a wrestling fan. There was either no wrestling on or there was, the wrestling you saw on, you had to watch. And we talked about this in the Payback retro. It is not easy to watch wrestling in the pandemic now that there's crowds back now and everything like that. This isn't Thunderdome this time. It's PC crowd, so it's even worse. And this show we're going to talk about, the reason this show is the way that it is because if you remember, Vince McMahon always has his quarterly earnings call that he has every quarter. And I think he just had one, like, the week before this Raw. It wasn't even the week before. It was, like, a little over a week. And Vince McMahon, like, all of the media and the networks and stuff were asking, so what about them ratings? Like, it was, like, they always asked about them, obviously, but it was, like, hardcore they asked about it this time. Every question, I think, was about the ratings. So Vince says, we're going to start to, push new characters. He would say the typical Vince thing. He said, you would really watch Raw. We're going to start to turn things around because the ratings for WWE were really low this time. Obviously, because no one wanted to watch wrestling because it was in the pandemic and stuff like that. No one wants to watch pandemic wrestling. But, you can understand why the networks really hounded them this time because nothing else is on. You're the only thing going. Why are your ratings so low? So I think it was like a few days later. It wasn't even the websites or anything like that. WWE leaked out to the website, we have this new faction coming in. And He already gave it a name, Retribution. By the way, what a great new faction. It's Invade, and you already know what's coming, by the way. Like, Vince is like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We know this faction's coming. We're going to get to that faction in a second. He already has the name. It's like, how can you have the name already if the faction hasn't even debuted yet and all that type of stuff? Like, it doesn't even make sense. But then they advertised the return of Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon had been MIA, by the way, since the ladder match he had with Kevin Owens when, he was banished from WWE, pretty much. They just brought him back. You know, they wanted a big name to bring back.
They said, fuck it, he's back.
Yeah. And we're wondering, like, what is Shane McMahon going to do? I don't think anyone would have predicted what Shane McMahon does on this show. We were thinking he was going to... What were you... When you watched the show at the time? Because I was thinking he was going to come back and just do a promo and maybe set up a feud or something. What were you thinking was going to happen when Shane came back?
I thought he was going to wrestle. That's the first thing that I thought.
Yeah.
I popped it in my head. I'm like, oh, Shane's back. He's going to wrestle. Pretty cool. Awesome. Because at this point, Shane was still pretty good.
Yeah.
He hadn't blown on a squad yet.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, well, we're going to get to, But what Shane does in the show, I don't think anyone would have predicted. I still don't even know how we're even going to tackle that. But, that's basically everything that happened. That's all. The WWE was not in a good state. And, they tried to do the best they could. It was the pandemic. They were just trying to do everything. They were trying to throw shit at the wall and see what stick. Oh, boy, did they ever try it on this show. Vince was like, yeah, you want them waves to go up? You want to see some changes? Oh, we're going to make some changes, all right. Let's not do the Triple H method and slowly start to build up new styles. Let's throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Vince loved doing that. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw shit at the wall. By the way, this is also like a month after he fucking fired Paul Heyman as head writer of Raw, and everyone was wondering, oh, what happened to Raw? And he fired. He used that as the now, like, oh, we just changed the writing team now. You always notice he would always make like a little change to the show. Oh, I just fired the head writer, so now things are gonna really coming around now. Like it's like,
oh, he always did that.
Yeah. Notice those questions are coming up when Triple H started taking things over. There's no questions about that coming up. So, but yeah, let's just start talking about this show. It was August 3rd, 2020. We had some exclusives. Mackenzie Mitchell did like a video previewing the show, what's to come tonight. This was when she started going on like locations. She would just go to random places because she couldn't actually go, to the headquarters because it was shut down and everything like that. So she would just go outside and just talk about it. So good on her for getting outside during the quarantine. Good on Mackenzie Mitchell. So, and then Apollo Crews gets interviewed. He talks about retaining his United States Championship against MVP, saying that, MVP's been calling himself the champion, but tonight I'm going to show who the real champion is. So there's that. Then we had the actual show. We had Byron Saxton, Tom Phillips, and Samoa Joe on commentary for this show. They did fairly well on commentary. I thought they did all right. You could definitely tell they're micromanaged by Vince. There's a lot of things that they say, Vince is telling them to say that. This is when everyone was pissed because Samoa Joe was on commentary. He was pretty much ready to come back at this time, and Vince just never brought him back in the ring. He kept him on commentary for no reason. Mainly because, too, they couldn't bring back Jerry the King Lawler because he was high risk of getting COVID. And, also, too, because, not just because he was high risk of getting COVID. I think he mentioned, remember he had like a line he said about Tozawa or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And like he couldn't come, and like everybody like got pissed about it. So like they had to take him off commentary. So that's why Joe was on commentary, because they needed some reason Raw had to be a 3-man booth, but SmackDown was allowed to be 2. I don't know why Vince was dead set on that. But you notice how when Triple H took over right away, and Raw went to everything's a 2-man booth now. No more 3-man booths anymore. So.
Boo. Give me 3 men in a booth, calling it some wrestling.
But anyhow, let's go through this show. You haven't been able to watch the show. You haven't seen the show since it happened. So, we'll start talking about it. We had the first match. It was a United States Championship match. It was Apollo Crews. No, actually, we had the intro first because it's important. It was just the Raw intro. We had Skillet playing and all that type of stuff. This was like the bad Skillet song, too. It wasn't even the good Skillet song. Remember it was that legendary song? It was fucking terrible. It was awful.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. This is when James and I had those conversations. Like, Skillet really lost their way. Like, Skillet used to be awesome. Remember like how in a Cell 2009 theme song, that was like kick ass and and it was like, oh, what happened to you? Like,
they got thrown into a skillet.
Yeah, it seems like it. And then Tom Phillips, Samoa Joe, and Byron Saxton are just breaking down the show. They're talking about all this stuff that's gonna happen, and then the lights go out. Remember this? The lights went out. They're like, oh, what's going on? We're having some power issues here. More on that later, by the way. Remember when I said Vince wanted to bring some excitement? He just had the lights flicker on and off. That's great excitement right there.
Oh, yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah, but the reaction to it is just so disingenuous, if you remember. Like, Tom Phillips, Samoa Joe's reaction is pretty big, but Tom Phillips and Byron says, like, oh, we've been having some power outages all day today. What a coincidence they don't fix those power outages when the show starts, by the way.
I know, right?
What,
yeah, the lights are flickering, and they're like, let's ignore it.
They're just like, but Tom Phillips is just like, we're gonna try to press on with the show. But what was your reaction when you saw that happen? When the lights were like shut off, like when the commentators were like talking and stuff like that, they just shut off too. Like, what were you thinking?
I was like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
I was like, why are you not fixing the power lines if that's an issue?
But there's more on that later though. Then we had the opener. It was the United States Championship match. It was Apollo Crews defending his championship against MVP with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin ringside. During Apollo's entrance, the lights go out again. And you heard someone, because this is a PC crowd, chanting, turn those lights back on. You heard them screaming at the top of their lungs. I thought at first it was Apollo Crews that was saying that, but it was like some random guy in the crowd was just chanting, turn those lights back on. Like he was so upset those lights were off.
It should have been turn those fucking lights back on.
Yeah. But then MVP makes his entrance. The reason for this match was they were feuding. MVP tried to recruit Apollo Crews to join the Hurt Business, but he refused. He wanted to make it on his own. So they were supposed to have a match, if you remember, at the horror show at Extreme Rules. I think it was the name of that pay-per-view.
Yeah,
well,
it was.
Yeah, and then in real life, Apollo Crews caught COVID, so he couldn't show up for the pay-per-view. However, if you remember, this was at that time Vince didn't want he didn't want to talk about COVID. Like, you never hear COVID talk about on Raw. That's why it was such a surprise when McIntyre got COVID. They actually mentioned it. It was like, whoa, they actually mentioned McIntyre.
Yeah, Vince
COVID.
refused to mention it.
Yeah. So they just said that he got a neck injury being put in the full Nelson by Bobby Lashley before this. I'm like, wow. And it wasn't even that bad. I think he had showed up again like before that too. So what? Did his neck all of a sudden like just hurt one day? Like
I remember I posted it like in our chat that it was like the next day it was like, oh, Apollo Crews has got COVID, and it's like, God damn it.
Yeah. So then they were supposed to have a match at the horror show at Extreme Rules. MVP, you thought won the match by forfeit because the Crews couldn't even show up for the pay-per-view. So they just said he had a neck injury. If you remember, they brought in the new championship, the one they have now. I think it had been around for a little bit, but I remember I think a horror show at Extreme Rules was when it first showed up, and then
I think this MVP walked out with it.
Yeah, MVP declared he was the champion, and you thought he won the belt. Like you thought he won the belt via forfeit, but then they kept saying they wouldn't even mention Crews. Like you thought MVP was the champion until this Raw. Like it was so confusing. But then on this Raw, they were just like, yeah, Apollo Crews actually was the champion all along. Like, wait, what happened? Like, it was so confusing at this time. This is why COVID sucks.
It's like, why the fuck is it so confusing?
Yeah, this is why COVID sucks, by the way. So you thought this was a title for title match, but it wasn't a title for title match. It was just Crews was defending his championship, and MVP just happened to have the new belt. He was just walking around with it. Oh, it was so terrible. Why not just say MVP? We pushed the match to a later date or something like that. It was just so stupid. But we had the match. Apollo Crews starts off dominating the match in the beginning portions of it. He just destroys MVP. He clotheslines him out of the ring. He gets a moonsault onto the floor. Eventually, the lights start flickering too during this match. It wouldn't stop. It just kept flickering consistently. And then during the commercial break, Bobby Lashley chop blocks the leg of Apollo Crews, and MVP starts working on the leg of Apollo Crews. Lights flickered very much so during the heat spot that MVP was doing to Apollo Crews. He hits a really good Northern Lights suplex onto Crews, but he doesn't get the win. He hits the player's boot in the corner, but Apollo Crews kicks out of that. Apollo Crews starts mounting a comeback. He hits a really good German suplex on the MVP. Then at one point, MVP himself hits a German suplex on Crews, but he flips out of it. He no-sells it, and then he hits an enziguri, followed by the toss powerbomb onto MVP for the win, and he wins. Not even wins, I'm sorry. He retains his United States Championship, but he gets to keep MVPs. There was also a cool thing where MVP did like a big clothesline that completely spun Apollo Crews around, so that was cool. And then Bobby Lashley tries to put Apollo Crews back in the full Lashley, I think they started calling it, and Apollo Crews took off. He just slipped out of it and ran away. What a great babyface, running away from fights. Great babyface right there. Running away.
Fucking fantastic.
Before this, too, MVP cut a promo saying that he was going to win the U.S. title. Obviously, that didn't happen because they just broke down the match. And you should have known that happened. This show happened like 3 years ago. Almost 3 years ago, so you should have known that happened. This match was good. I'll give it like 3 stars. The only thing that hurts the match is just the consistent light flickers and stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, that was just not good. And, it was really confusing, like, what was going on, because it was like, yeah, Apollo Crews was the champion, but they would, like, make it seem like MVP was the champion, so. I'll still give the match 3 stars, though. This is the best match of the whole show, by the way, which is not good if this is the best match of the whole show, but, what did you think of this match when you watch it and everything like that?
I thought it was okay, like, it was just really weird how they did it, because Apollo got COVID, where it's like MVP was the fake champion, then Apollo had to beat him to win his championship. It's just really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, the match itself was good. Yeah, I'll give it 3 stars. It was a good match.
We've done career retrospective on all these guys. Afterwards, Apollo Crews gets interviewed, and he talks about how happy he is that he retained his championship. It says that now he's going to take the title, the old version of the U.S. title, and he's going to hand it on his kids' mantle, so that way they can look at, and realize that, they can be, that their father's someone that they can be proud of, that he does this for them. So, I guess that's where the old belt is now, not at the warehouse. Apollo Crews just kept it. He's at home, and these kids wake up and they look at that championship. It'd be funny if they were like throwing their clothes all over that championship, like dirty laundry and all that type of stuff. They like spilled a drink on it by accident, like, oh shit, it's just, yeah. And Apollo Crews comes in there, like, I put this on there for you so you can look at me an inspiration. And I just imagine they dropped it on the floor too. That's like, yeah, it'd be funny.
Screw you, Dad.
Huh?
Screw you, Dad. I'm fucking champion now.
they beat him for the belt or something.
24/7 rules. Let's go.
Oh, we'll get to that later. And then Apollo Crews says that he's gonna keep MVP's belt in spite of MVP. So there you go. Then
well, it's not his belt, it's yours.
Yeah, not anymore.
You won the fucking thing.
Yeah. It wasn't even his, he retained the belt. He was the champion already. Like, then afterwards, MVP gets on the mic. He cuts his passionate promo talking about how Apollo Crews didn't beat him fair and square. Who could have wrestled in these working conditions with lights flickering and referees missing shit that shouldn't have been missed? He doesn't say shit, obviously. I'm adding that in there. So he said
wish he did.
He said that he wants to beat up Apollo Crews right in front of his kid. He tells him screw Apollo Crews' wife and kid. And he says that he's invoking his rematch clause at SummerSlam. So there you go. What do you think of all that stuff? Apollo Crews' promo and MVP's promo afterwards.
Apollo Crews' promo's a good one. MVP's doesn't make any sense because he wasn't fucking champion.
Yeah.
You can't cash in a rematch for a championship you never won.
This is when Apollo Crews, by the way, too, like got like a big push, like right after the pandemic hit, pretty much. So that was good for him. I was happy he finally got the push because we were like begging for him to finally get pushed, and he finally got pushed. So I was happy about that. Then next backstage, it shows the starting of Shane McMahon, what they called Shane McMahon's brainchild. We see this big guy outside, some type of club or something. We had music going on, and he's like a bouncer type of thing. We know this big guy now is Almas. We'll do a quick retrospective on him. He would obviously, he had like various roles in the company. Eventually, he would be AJ Styles' bodyguard. and they would go on to win the Raw Tag Team titles together at WrestleMania 37. It wasn't long after this, actually, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They held the belts till SummerSlam. They lost them to OK Bro, and then they kind of did their thing. Almost turned on him. He had an undefeated streak. He lost to Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 38, and then MVP started managing Almost, and yeah, they just kind of been. It's been kind of the same. He'll just have a big match on occasion and all that type of stuff. But what do you think of the startings of the Shane McMahon brainchild type of thing? What did you think of that?
It was interesting.
Yeah. And then the Golden Role Models got interviewed. The reason this has happened is because a week before this, Sasha Banks won the Raw Women's Championship. I think she won it from Asuka. I don't even know. I think Asuka got stripped of the belt, but it's really made unclear because they never even said what happened. But she won by countout. This is when they wrote off Kairi Sane because they had Bayley beat her up backstage. So Asuka had to make the choice whether or not to retain the belt or win the belt. I don't even know. Or win. And yeah, Sasha Banks won the belt by countout. Fucking awful, by the way. Awful finish that was. But yeah, this is when the Golden Role Models were just taking the pandemic world by storm. They really held down the fort during the pandemic. Bayley was the SmackDown Women's Champion. Sasha was the Raw Women's Champion, and they were both the tag champions, so they were just showing up everywhere. They do an interview, and they talk about how happy they are to be taking over the WWE by storm. And they say they don't want to just, talk about the... because then Charlie Caruso asked them if they're going to defend their any of their belts at SummerSlam, and they're like, we're not going to do this back and forth where you ask us questions. We're going to show you our dominance. And they show this video, which they've shown on SmackDown already, of everything that they've done since they've been together as a team, and it gets interrupted by Asuka, where she just shouts in Japanese and says that she's coming for the Golden Role Models. She's out for revenge. You think that's the end of the segment, but that's not the end of the segment. Shayna Baszler comes up and says that she's looking to get some type of title opportunity against one of them. And the Golden Role Model says they don't have any interest in that. And it leads to Shayna Baszler sucker punching Sasha Banks, and it leads to a match later. So, this segment was good. I thought the Golden Role Models were pretty good here. So, there's that. What did you think of this?
It's a segment that happened. It wasn't bad.
By the way, we should just count. There's not for a 3-hour show, not a lot of wrestling on this show. That's how you can tell if it's a Vince show versus a Triple H show. If there's no wrestling, then that's a Vince show. Because Vince hates wrestling for some reason. So, then Kevin Owens is backstage. This is when they were really fucking up with Kevin Owens. He just wasn't doing anything. The guy beat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And then, to be fair, yes, he was injured, but he just wasn't doing anything. He would just show up, and he would just kind of hang out. The Iconics come up to him, and they want to know. They heard the rumors that Kevin Owens was going to host the Kevin Owens show tonight. They wanted to be his special guest, and Kevin Owens says, "Yeah, I can't just put you guys as my special guest. It takes me a week to plan these things out. So I already have guests. So sorry." And then he just grabs the water and leaves. What do you think of this? I thought Kevin Owens was good, but it just sucked. They didn't seem like they have a lot going on with Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't around much around this time, so yeah. It is what it is.
Then we had the Kevin Owens show with a mystery guest. We didn't know who the guest was. Kevin Owens comes out. He calls out Shane McMahon, being like, "Yeah, I'm kind of upset that Shane McMahon's back because I'm the one that sent him away to begin with. But I guess he's just back now." That's all he says. He doesn't say anything more about it. He just kind of moves on. He's like, "But I'm just gonna move on from that." Like, yeah, what are you moving on from that for, dude? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, Shane McMahon's back. You should want to go beat the shit out of him. Like, oh, it was just terrible. And then he brings out his special guest. Not Shane McMahon, the guy that he wants to fucking beat the shit out of. He brings out Ruby Riott. What a fucking home run guest that was. Ruby Riott comes out, and Kevin Owens talks about how ever since Ruby Riott's been back, she hadn't had much luck recently. And Kevin Owens says that, you want to, you had your first win on Raw last week. You were very emotional about it, but you still want to you still want to reform the Wyatt Squad with, you know, Ruby with Liv Morgan and everything like that. And they had to write a storyline because Liv Morgan got COVID too, so they couldn't have her show up for a few weeks. So they had to kind of write a storyline where Ruby Riott had to do this by herself. Because I think they started the storyline where they were going to get the Wyatt squad back together. But then Liv caught COVID, so they had to improvise.
Yeah,
this is just
it was like right on that time period.
This is around the same time too. Like Ruby Riott came back, she turned on Liv Morgan for no reason. Then all of a sudden she decided, yeah, I want to be a team. I want to be a partner now. And they wrote the storyline where like Liv couldn't trust Ruby Riott. It's like, Vince, what did you write that storyline for anyways? If you were just gonna put them back together anyways, like, what are you doing, Vince? Yeah, Ruby Riott talks. She talked about how she was happy to get a win, and she wants to focus on her career. And you know, if it brings her back to Liv Morgan, then that's cool. If it doesn't, then you know it's it's something I'm gonna regret for the rest of my life. Then Kevin Owens reveals, I have a surprise for you, actually, because my other special guest, coincidentally enough, is Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan comes out. You know, she obviously did not expect that, Ruby Riott, that Kevin Owens was going to do this. Kevin Owens pulling some strings here, lying to people and everything like that, too. So, Liv Morgan comes in, and she's like, you know, I didn't expect that this was going to happen. Kevin Owens didn't exactly tell me you were going to be on the show. So she's not really sure what's going on here. And then Kevin Owens says that, you know, he's done a lot of screwed up stuff in his career. He's backstabbed a lot of people in the back. And he says that, you know, he wants to make a change. He wants to start to do things the right way. And he wants to, you know, they don't have to get along. He wants Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan to hash things out, to just talk. So Ruby Riott does this passionate promo talking about how, you know, when she came back, she didn't really feel needed anymore. She thought that Liv Morgan was doing well on her own. Then when you beat me 2 times in a row, I definitely didn't feel needed anymore. And she says that, you know, I understand if you don't trust me, but if you don't want to be my partner anymore, I understand that. We can just move our separate ways, but I just want progress to start to be made. And before Liv Morgan's about to grab the mic and say something, and the Iconics interrupted. What a coincidence! Right before Liv Morgan says anything, that the Iconics just happened to interrupt it. What a coincidence that was. But during this promo, by the way, Kevin Owens' mic kept cutting in and out, and there'll be more on that later on too. And Kevin Owens says, I didn't invite you guys to be out here. And Peyton was just like, don't interrupt me. But she wasn't even talking while Kevin Owens went to talk, so I don't even understand what she was talking about there. It didn't make any sense. But
don't interrupt me and don't talk when I'm talking, even though I'm not talking.
She was like just about to talk too, but she wasn't actually talking. Like Kevin Owens was, yeah, I don't understand. But the Iconics throw shade at the Wyatt squad. They talk about how Ruby Riott got all emotional after one victory after we just slipped on a banana peel. And they said that what's going to happen to Liv Morgan? You're just going to go back to sitting in the bathtub. And I'm like, wait, what the hell are you talking about there? But I forgot they did that gimmick. Remember she did those weird vignettes right before she returned and all that.
Well, they tried to make her really hot.
Yeah. And she was still in that gimmick. Is she still in that gimmick now? I don't even know. Like it's like a mixture of that gimmick. I'm not even sure anymore. But
yeah, they tried to make it seem like she was a lesbian for some reason.
And then they, like, backed out of it randomly.
And then they backed out of it really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was something that they said that was happening.
Yep.
Like 2 years prior. I'm like, all right, you're fucking reaching now. Just because they took a picture, her and Lana took a picture together 3 years ago.
But then, then Kevin Owens, talks about how the Wyatt, I don't even know, like Kevin Owens started talking bad to them, so then they slapped Kevin Owens in the face, and Kevin Owens, because he's a gentleman, is not going to put his hands on a woman, says, you guys want to help me out here? And they attack the Iconics. This segment was awful. Honestly, I think the worst thing about this segment is this was a terrible utilization of Kevin Owens. Like, why does Kevin Owens care about any of this stuff? Put him in a fucking storyline. I know you're going to say, well, we didn't have anybody. Bobby Lashley was right there. He was a heel. Like, this was a terrible... Kevin Owens was being used really bad at this time. He was losing to Angel Garza at this time for no reason, randomly. Like, what the fuck were they doing with Kevin Owens? If you're not going to do anything, put him on SmackDown. Like, the fuck was this? This was terrible. like, honestly, the storyline wasn't good anyways. The thing that pissed me off the most is this was such a waste of Kevin Owens. What did you think?
Not very good utilization of Kevin Owens. Yeah, it just seemed like very weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the Kevin Owens show and whatnot, but like it just was not a very good utilization of him. They didn't have him really
Yeah.
in any really good storylines until later on.
Probably the Roman Reigns storyline, ironically.
I was gonna say the Roman Reigns storyline was probably his best of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where he was utilized to his full potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it turned into a match. Vince loves booking those segments, by the way. Segments that turn into matches for no reason.
They always happen.
Yeah. It was the Wyatt Squad. Well, Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan, they weren't really the Wyatt Squad at this time, versus the Iconics. Kevin Owens was on commentary for this match. He didn't really get to say much because the match doesn't last very long. The heels get the heat on Ruby Riott. And then eventually Liv Morgan gets the hot tag. And from out of nowhere, she rolls up. I think it was either Peyton Royce or Billy Kay. I forget which one. And gets the win randomly out of nowhere. And then afterwards, the Iconics attack them. And then the Wyatt Squad fight them off. And they hit a double STO on the Peyton Royce. And it was funny because not Peyton Royce, it was Billy Kay that got hit with the double STO. But Peyton Royce like sat in the corner, just let that happen. She didn't really do anything to help.
Fuck it,
Billy Kay. But afterwards, it looks like the Wyatt Squad's back together. And I know what you're thinking, Chris. Like, this is great. The Wyatt Squad are back together. If you remember, they don't even get back together. Like, they continue this storyline with whether they can work together, but they clearly work together. Like in this match, they continue the storyline up until like Payback. Yeah, this match was awful. I gave the match. I gave it 2 stars I think I gave it 2 stars because of Kevin Owens' commentary. That's the only reason. That's the only thing that's really worth watching here. What did you think?
I give it a. I don't even know, like a 1.5 stars. It wasn't good at all.
Yeah.
Just seemed like it ended too quickly. Too also, just wasn't very good.
3-hour show. You can't squeeze in an epic tag match right there. I know what you're going to say, Chris. The Attitude Era did have a lot of good wrestling on the show and everything like that. At least the fucking segments were good. The fucking segments on the show fucking suck. Like,
they've been terrible.
Yeah.
Like, really bad.
And then Charlie Caruso's backstage. And I think they threw it to the commentators, and the commentators said, "Oh, Charlie Caruso's backstage with an update." And she's backstage, and she says, "I don't know what happened, guys, but earlier today, apparently, this box full of, like, generators or whatever, like, some type of electronic equipment was in there. And this box was just knocked over. And I've been getting my sources around and all that type of stuff. Apparently, this was no accident. This was on purpose." And MVP comes up, and he's just like, "Boxes? You're talking about boxes when I've been screwed over with these terrible working conditions? You're talking about boxes being knocked over? Are you kidding me? This is why this place has there's a conspiracy around here. They rather talk about boxes being knocked over than me being robbed of my championship." And then Charlie Caruso says, "Well, I was actually just about to come interview you, MVP, but Apollo Crews did accept his rematch for the United States Champion. Oh, no, he accepted your rematch, even though he doesn't even have a rematch for the United States Championship." And MVP's just like, "Yeah, that's what I like to hear. That's business." Then Shelton Benjamin comes up and says that someone stole his 24/7 championship because he was the 24/7 champion at the time. And MVP says, "Don't worry, we're going to get it back." And they just leave. And then Charlie Caruso says, "I'm going to have more updates on you when I find out about this situation going on with this box being knocked over." The segment was bad. MVP tried to save the segment the best he could, but, like, yeah, this was just terrible. Like, who cares about a box being knocked over? Like, yeah, what a great...
They did, apparently, way too much.
What did you think of this?
Not very good.
This was terrible. Then the show gets awesome for, like, one segment. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton have a face-to-face segment. Drew McIntyre at the time was the WWE champion. He was really carrying the company at this time through the pandemic. It was really like him and the golden role models that were carrying the company, and maybe NXT a little bit were carrying the company through the pandemic. They were doing really well. Drew McIntyre went through like a bunch of opponents, at the same time, Randy Orton would start his new Legend Killer gimmick, where he took out Legends, he took out Edge, Christian, and The Big Show, and he was aligned with Ric Flair, and Randy Orton wanted to go after the WWE Championship. He had attacked Drew McIntyre the week before, after he had a match with Dolph Ziggler, laid him out with the RKO, and that basically started the storyline. Oh, by the way, they show that, by the way, like 3 times before this segment, by the way. Randy Orton laying out Drew McIntyre. You know, because Vince loved doing that, showing recaps like, consistently on every show he writes. He loves showing recaps again, and again. He just loves it. But yeah, this segment was awesome right here. Drew McIntyre comes out, and he talks about how he's up to go against Randy Orton. He talks about how Randy Orton's not like any superstar that's ever been around before. He's someone that will sneak in from behind after you've had a grueling match and strike when he sees fit. And he talks about how, Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre, Vince McMahon sat down and told them that they were the chosen ones. And even though Drew McIntyre didn't get there exactly how Vince thought he would, Vince ended up being right. But he talked about how Drew McIntyre, had to scratch and claw to get to the WWE Championship. Because he said that Edge was right. This really wasn't your plan A. Hell, it wasn't even your plan B, C, D, E, or F. Randy Orton got into this business because of his father being Cowboy Bob Orton, and he always had to, get those opportunities for him. While Drew McIntyre had to scratch and claw to get them. Drew McIntyre talked about how he was fired from the WWE, and he deserved to be fired, and he went and made a name for himself. While there was times that Randy Orton should have been fired several times. And he said that at SummerSlam, he's going to kick Randy Orton's head off, pretty much. And Randy Orton comes out with Ric Flair, and Randy Orton talks about how everything that Drew McIntyre said was right, that he should have been fired several times over. However, I am much more value to this company than you have been. That if he got fired, he'd be irreplaceable. And he talks about how, Drew McIntyre said that he didn't want to be here. If he didn't want to be here, he wouldn't be here because he's made his money. But he said that he's here because he actually does want to be here. And he challenges Drew McIntyre to say something original about him. Say something that no one else has ever said before. Because I have a feeling, Chris, when you were watching this segment at the time, you were like, okay, Drew, this is a good promo, but Drew's not really saying anything new here. Like, everybody has said this before about Randy Orton. And Drew says, oh, you want a challenge, huh? You want a challenge? He drops his championship to the ground. And he talks about how Randy Orton said in The Undertaker's Last Ride documentary, the Undertaker basically pulled him up from obscurity. He made Randy Orton. He saved his career. And Drew McIntyre said that The Undertaker did that because he cares about this business. He always tried to help and give advice to that next generation coming up. And he asked Randy Orton if he's ever done that to that next generation. And he says that Randy Orton hasn't passed down that knowledge because he doesn't care about anybody else but himself. He only cares about himself. And then it gets like really personal. He talks about how 10 years ago, in 2010, around this time, Drew McIntyre talked about how he was in a bad place at this time. His mother was sick. I think he said like he just wasn't in a good place. I think around that time he was going through his divorce at that time. And he says that, Randy Orton could have been that guy that been that big star that could have given him support, like a word of advice that would have really stuck with him. But Randy Orton said that he talked about Randy Orton didn't do anything about it. And he said that, he's never forgiven Randy Orton for that. And he says that for all of the people that he's kicked in the head, he's going to kick Randy Orton in the head. And then that was the end of the segment. This segment was absolutely awesome here. Both guys were great, but this was like Drew McIntyre's like best work on the mic right here. It sucks that this wasn't in front of a crowd, just because like I think everybody would have loved Drew McIntyre. He would have gotten so over with this promo, but this promo was absolutely excellent. Like this feud was awesome, well up until it wasn't awesome. But what did you think of this segment right here when that Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton said? Because it was awesome.
That's a great segment. Both guys got over huge. I really liked it.
Yeah. And yeah, did Drew McIntyre impress you? Did he say, because I bet, like, I bet you did not expect Drew McIntyre to cut that promo that he cut on Randy Orton right there.
What?
Huh?
Huh?
I asked you, did you expect Drew McIntyre to cut that promo that he cut on Randy Orton about like his bad place and everything like that?
Oh no, I didn't expect that at all. He went really deep, and yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was really a nice personal touch
But yeah,
because
this
he did struggle for the longest time after his WWE release originally.
yeah. And then obviously after this, they would go on to have the match at SummerSlam where Drew would win. Then he'd win the ambulance match, and then they'd randomly continued it for no reason at Hell in a Cell where Randy Orton won the belt for no reason, just to lose it right back to Drew McIntyre like a
That
monkey.
was stupid.
Yeah, that was weird. And then, yeah, it was just weird. The one thing I'll never forgive WWE for is not keeping Drew champ, at least until the... I know they couldn't predict when the crowds were going to come back, but the one thing I'll never forgive him for is... I know, like, Bobby Lashley had just won the belt, but the fact... Because we probably... Who knows when we're going to be able to talk about this again. They should have called an audible and had him win the belt at WrestleMania 37. There was actually a crowd there, and they should have called an audible.
Yes.
Yeah, but...
I agree with that.
But yeah...
It's a mistake not to.
Yeah, but... Yeah, this segment was awesome. This segment, by the way, saves this show from being like an F, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. It gets fucking worse.
Yeah. Then we had Nia Jax and Pat Buck backstage. Pat Buck had just come back from being furloughed. Just to get fired again for, I think, not long after this. The reason this was happening is because during a match between Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax took a cheap shot at Pat Buck, so they were talking about it backstage. I thought something actually was going to happen here, but nothing happened. Then Kevin Owens and the Wyatt Squad are backstage, and they're just having a conversation. Ric Flair comes up to him, and Kevin Owens tells that he's going to catch up with them later. Ric Flair is trying to give Kevin Owens advice pretty much that he just needs to worry about Kevin Owens. He doesn't need to worry about anybody else but Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens says he understands what Ric Flair is saying, but he realizes he burned a lot of bridges with the way he got to the top. If he wants to get back to the top again, he wants to do it the right way, which I actually thought was a good promo that Kevin Owens cut right there. And Ric Flair says, "I'm not giving you advice that that you want to listen to. I give you advice that you need to listen to." And he basically says the same thing again. And then Kevin Owens says, I don't want to be like Randy Orton, who got to the top of this business and didn't give back. Kevin Owens says that he wants to actually give back in this business. So Ric Flair says that don't leave. He tells him to leave Randy Orton out of this, and Ric Flair says, "Who's the one in the WWE Championship match at SummerSlam where you're just sitting and catering right now?" And Kevin Owens says, "You know what? If you feel that way, how about Randy Orton and I meet in that ring? Not tonight, next week, and we'll sort it out."
No, nothing could have been tonight.
Yeah. And Ric Flair accepts the challenge on behalf of Randy Orton. I like this segment. You could definitely see Ric Flair was lost here, though. Like the promos he was cutting, he did not look like he was all there. Like he looked lost. But I liked this. I liked the back and forth between Kevin Owens and Ric Flair. I like the fact that it set up a match for next week. But we couldn't have any wrestling on this week. By the way, this is let me just count them right here. This is Charlie Caruso backstage, Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton's face, Nia Jax and Pat Buck, Kevin Owens and the Wyatt Squad. This is the fourth segment in a row that wasn't a wrestling thing. So yeah, that's great. What did you think of this though?
It was okay.
Yeah.
Nothing special.
And then we had this was awful. Nia Jax and Pat Buck's promo. I don't think you remember this. I didn't remember this, but this did happen. Nia Jax comes out, and she talks about how last week she struck a WWE official last week, and she says that she was asked to come out here and apologize, but instead, I have to apologize to someone that couldn't cut it in the ring and is too short and couldn't lace my boots, referring to Pat Buck, who was right there. And then she's like, "Oh, Pat, I didn't see you there," when she clearly saw him there. And then she basically challenges Pat Buck to a match. Pat Buck doesn't accept the match. Nia Jax tries to talk him into the match, and Pat Buck says, "You know what? I was expecting you were going to come out here for an apology, but since you're not doing that, you're suspended indefinitely without pay." And Nia Jax gets upset about this and beats him up. Doesn't hit a finisher on him or anything like that, but she lays him out with her right hand, does like a headbutt, and then just kicks him out of the ring. and Nia Jax is suspended without pay. What a pointless segment this was. It didn't set up anything. It was just really pointless and just time filler. This was awful. This was like the worst of Nia Jax right here. Why was Pat Buck like an official, by the way? It was never mentioned before on camera that he was like an authority figure, so this just was terrible. What did you think of this?
Yeah, not good. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now.
And this never went anywhere. Nia Jax just came back, and they just teamed with Shayna Baszler. That nothing happened with this.
Didn't she threaten to beat his ass or something like that too? Also,
yeah, she did. So this was terrible. As you know, as a quick career retrospective for Pat Buck, when did he get fired again? Because was he fired before the pandemic ended, or was he fired after the pandemic ended? Because I remember he gets fired again at some point, and now he does.
It was it at the end of the year?
Yeah.
April of 2022.
And now he works for AEW doing the same thing.
April 4th, 2022.
Wow.
Pat Buck resigned after following WrestleMania 38.
Okay. I thought he was with AEW because I saw him on AEW, I thought, fairly recently.
That was like 10 days after.
Okay. Well, he's just backstage now, so. And then doing this, Shelton Benjamin tries to chase down R-Truth because he's the one that ended up stealing his 24/7 championship. Which leads to the triple threat match. It was a 24/7 championship match. Shelton Benjamin with MVP and Shelton... No, what? Okay, let me rephrase that.
He's with himself at ringside also, too.
Yeah, they cloned him, I guess. But no, it's Shelton Benjamin with MVP and Bobby Lashley ringside. He was defending the 24/7 title against R-Truth and Akira Tozawa, and Akira Tozawa was accompanied by ninjas. You heard that right. I said ninjas. They weren't... You're thinking, oh, they were just wrestling dressed up as ninjas, which, yes, was the case, but they just called them ninjas. I think the ninjas were just, PC recruits, obviously?
Yeah.
It'd be funny if one of them was like, well, one of them was Omos at one point, right? He's not here.
Yes, yeah. The giant one.
Yeah, but he's not here, but we have this match. Shelton Benjamin dominates early. He hits a really cool slingshot into the ropes. And then Tozawa tries to attack him, but none of his offense has any effect on him. And Shelton Benjamin just lays him out with a powerbomb. The ninjas get into the ring, and the Hurt Business start taking out the ninjas. R-Truth takes out the ninjas. Shelton Benjamin hits the pay dirt on R-Truth. He attacks one of the ninjas. He's outside beating him up, and then Tozawa uses his opportunity to hit the senton on R-Truth, and he wins the match and becomes the new 24/7 champion. And then he takes off because obviously after the match is over, the 24/7 rules go back into effect. So it's the not 24/7 title rules. Anytime the champion had a match, if you remember, the 24/7 title rules would be suspended, which was always stupid.
Yeah.
And Tozawa takes off. And later on in the exclusive, it shows him running around backstage, trying to get away, so that way he doesn't get pinned. But this match was bad. Shelton Benjamin essentially lost this match because he was too worried about beating up ninjas than, taking out, actually focus on retaining his title. The one-person one, they should have just kept the belt on Shelton, especially since MVP, quote-unquote, lost the U.S. title. And yeah, this was like when the 24/7 title just took a nosedive at this point. They ran out of creative ideas with it, and they just won't really do anything excited with it anymore. So I gave this match 1 star. The match doesn't even last that long, too. It's like less than 5 minutes. What did you think?
I guess I give it 1 star. It's just not good.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
I'm glad this title's gone now. Like, this title does not need to be here anymore. So, as for career retrospectives, we've done them before with R-Truth and Shelton Benjamin. Akira Tozawa would stay a ninja. This is when Vince just changed him to a ninja randomly for no reason. And he stayed that way, ironically enough, until Triple H took over. And now he's just a regular Tozawa again. And he still wrestles here and there on the main roster now and stuff. But yeah, not a good time to be Tozawa as of late. So.
It was not a good time.
Also, too, before this, it showed Shane McMahon's Brain Title Part 2. It was in between the Kevin Owens and the Wyatt Squad segment, where it shows a guy coming in with a bunch of drinks, and Omos, or the big giant security guard, because he wasn't Omos back then, looks at the guy, and the guy just runs away because he's too afraid to get past the big security guard. Which
a pussy.
Yeah, and then Shane McMahon returns. I don't even know what to say about this. Because it's weird. You think Wall Underground, you forget the actual reveal of it. It's just it shows I think is it at this point right here that happens?
Yes.
Yeah, it is at this point.
Because I think he announces it and then they go in.
It shows the fight and it's just two local guys. I think it was PC recruits doing Wall Underground, and Shane McMahon says, "This is Raw Underground right here. Tune in at 10 o'clock to watch Raw Underground." Like you can tell they were trying to keep the ratings for like the third hour. Like tune in at 10 o'clock to watch Raw Underground. But they actually don't launch Raw Underground. And then like I felt bad for like the commentators because they had to pretend this was good. Like Samoa Joe's like, "Oh, I'm interested. I want to see what this is all about." Like you could tell Samoa Joe was not genuine at all. He
was not genuine even remotely.
Yeah. But what did you think? You think Raw Underground's this big reveal? It's like slipped into the middle of the show, and it's like they don't even mention.
It's like, oh, by the way, this is Raw Underground.
He doesn't even say it's Raw Underground. He's like, yeah, no, he does say it's Raw Underground. He's like, oh, tune in to see what Raw Underground is. Like, there's no reveal about it. Like, there's no grand reveal. It's just plopped in. It's like, tune in at 10 o'clock to see Raw Underground.
I remember that. I was like, okay, this is all right. All right, I guess it's Raw Underground then.
Yeah, like it was like, oh, it was so weird.
Because we didn't get a name for it.
Yeah.
Prior, and then it was like,
because if
they like Shane walked in and like the camera followed behind. He's like, "This is Raw Underground," and I was like, "Okay, guess this is Raw. I guess this was the thing then."
Yeah, this is the thing that Shane McMahon came back for. What a bad segment that. You could definitely tell, because this is when they would tape shows. I feel like Vince rewrote the show. Not the complete last minute, because he had to tape this, but it felt like Vince like was rewriting stuff and like plopped in Raw Underground like randomly too. Like it was so weird. Like
yeah, it was
poor
bad.
Shane too. He had to because in kayfabe it was his brainchild. He had to basically take the bullet for this. For Vince's idea. This would be the last time, by the way, that Vince had to take. If you remember, because Shane had to take the bullet. Yes, he did book the Rumble, and that's what got him fired. But let's be real. Who had the final say in the storylines at the time? It was fucking Vince.
Shane McMahon. That's who had the final say.
But yeah, this was
he got his ass fired.
Yeah, this was it. What did you think of the first reveal of Raw? I liked the first reveal of Raw Underground. You don't see these stars actually there. It's just these two no names. You don't even know either. Like it's like I don't even think we've seen these guys ever again ever since. I don't even think we have.
I don't even. You could have, but I don't know. I honestly forget who the fuck it was.
Yeah, but yeah, this was terrible. This was just bad.
Not good. Not good.
Oh,
they could have done it so much better. They could have built up to it the whole night. They didn't fucking do a goddamn thing. They just threw it upon you last second.
Yeah, like they said, Shane McMahon's return, and then you see this Raw Underground like fight. I don't even know what it was. We'll talk more about what it was because they do more with it. Then next, Dominic Mysterio gets interviewed. This is back when you liked Dominic Mysterio. You don't like him anymore.
Yes, he's a good boy back then. Good boy.
The reason this was happening was because Rey Mysterio was in a feud with Seth Rollins, where Rey took out his eye. I think it was like the night after Money in the Bank. They just had an eye for an eye match where Rey lost and had his eye extracted. Do you remember until they went back on? It's like, oh, he might be actually his eye's not off. I was like, wait, that's the whole point of the match was to get rid of his eye. Like,
eye for an eye, meaning you take someone's eye, and instead they went, oh, he could be potentially maybe not really blind.
Yeah.
I
felt bad for Rey.
From the fact.
I felt bad for Rey because if you remember, he had to come back with like an eye patch. He had to wear this eye patch over like one of his masks for like a while too, like.
For a long time.
When did he finally stop wearing it? Like right when the feud ended, pretty much, right? Coincidentally enough, when the feud ended.
Because he wore it during Money in the Bank.
Yeah. No, he didn't. He didn't wear it during Money in the Bank because the Money in the Bank was before.
Oh, that's right. Money in the Bank was before.
He wore it during SummerSlam.
Yep. I think it was like a year later.
Yeah. Wow, that was a while.
He had it for a very long time, and then he ripped it off.
Yeah.
Not his eye. The eye patch.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
That'd be impressive.
Do you remember how bad that finish was too? Like you could if you watched the video package, you could tell that was not a real eye. Like it was just like a.
No, it was goofy. It was one of those fucking comedic things.
Yeah, but
like one of those like comedy eyes that that hangs out on purpose. It's weird. It's just...
Dominic Mysterio though was out for revenge for his. We couldn't say that nowadays, huh? Out for revenge for his father because he wanted to.
Because he's a pissant. Piece of shit.
You know, he tried to get revenge on him. If you remember, too, Aleister Black's eye got taken too at this time but Seth Rollins had Murphy like do the same thing to Aleister Black, if you remember too. So
now, ironically, they're disabled together, even though they tried to kill each other.
Well, it was really Murphy tried to kill Aleister Black, so I don't know what's going on there. I remember too he had the eye patch on him until like the end of his WWE one. I think he had it for like a second in AEW. So, but
Black's still keeping that fucking thing alive.
Yeah, but so Dominic Mysterio gets interviewed. He said that he's out for revenge and he's challenging Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam. And then that was it. I liked this though. You could definitely tell Dom wasn't obviously promo ready yet. He was very nervous, but I still liked this. What did you think of Dominic Mysterio promo challenging Seth Rollins to a match at SummerSlam?
I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it at the time. He was still very, very, very much a novice on the mic, and you could tell. But yeah, it wasn't bad. Right now, bad. He can, or bad pissant son. Back then, good young man.
Yeah, he didn't have
outstanding citizen.
He didn't have Judgment Day. If you remember too, Seth Rollins was trying to get Dom to join his stable, and he said no back then. I wonder what happened since then. He nowadays he was all fine joining the stable. So,
because he's weak, he's feeble.
Then we had the next match, and I know what you're thinking, Chris. This has to be good, right? This has to be awesome. Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks with Bayley ringside. How could this be bad? Well, let's talk about it. One, the match doesn't last. Match maybe is like 6 minutes. Like you really could. Did you really have to give Nia Jax and Pat Buck promo time and you couldn't put it on this match? Nah, we can't do that. They both start chain grappling each other. Sasha Banks gets the advantage. She works over the knee of Shayna Baszler. Then eventually Shayna Baszler bounds a comeback, and Shayna Baszler has Sasha. No, Sasha's about to hit like some type of frog splash or something. Asuka attacks Bayley, who's ringside, by the way, and the match ends. Let me repeat that. No, let me repeat that. Bayley, who was the manager, she was not in the match, got attacked by someone that also wasn't in the match, but somehow the match ended. The ref just called for the bell, even though no competitors in the match were attacked by someone not in the match.
Ta-da! Match over.
I remember too. There was news reports that Vince said if you attack your Vince added remember Vince was adding a lot of rules around this time. Like it
made no fucking sense.
If you attack your man, if someone's manager gets attacked, the match ends. It's like, how does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense. Like,
to Vince, nothing made sense, and that's why he did.
You can tell Vince was just throwing shit at the wall to keep people watching. And yeah, that was Asuka tries to get her hands on Sasha, but she escapes. And I know what you're thinking to yourself, Chris. Well, that has to be good, keeps people wanting to get their hands on him. You forget they only had 2 matches before this, so they only had Asuka only had her hands on her. So what are you doing this for?
Get her hands all over her.
Yeah, and then you're
thinking
not
one hand was not on her.
Yep. And then so this match is a style in 3/4 for the finish alone. That finish sucked, and the match wasn't even long. It was less than 10 minutes. What did you think of this? This was awful.
It sucks because they didn't give him enough time. You could have taken time away from that fantastic Hall of Fame level Pat Buck Nia Jax segment, which even though I didn't rewatch the show, I remember it very vividly. And Pat Buck got emasculated the whole time. Yeah. But yeah, it was just stupid. Like they could have taken at least 3 minutes off of that off that promo, or 2 to 3 minutes off of that promo, and given to this match, and not had that stupid finish.
Yeah.
And the match probably would have been 3 stars, but instead it's like a fucking 1.5 stars. because it's fucking terrible. I'm actually
But
at 1 star because of the finish. Terrible.
Vince hates wrestling, by the way. Like, you watch shows like this, you can understand why people think Vince hates wrestling. Notice every match except the opener has been less than 5 minutes, and it's a 3-hour Raw, by the way. It's not like it's a 2-hour SmackDown or like a 1-hour NXT or type of thing. Like, I don't know if people are gonna say, well, it's the pandemic, you have to give them a break. NXT and SmackDown were still doing long matches at this time. It was just Raw, the show that's 3 hours. Why are we doing like less than 10-minute matches?
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And then they
None of
continues.
it made any sense.
And then it continues, by the way. Asuka gets interviewed. And Charlie Caruso's asking her, like, what her mindset is after Kairi Sane was taken out. And so then she says, just in case anyone missed it, you know, let's show the recap. Show the recap of something they already showed the recap of. What a great idea that was. Vince loves doing this. He loves showing consistent recaps. He didn't just he showed the recap of a match he already showed the recap to. What a great idea this is. This is awesome. I know you're thinking to yourself, Chris. You think Raw Underground would have pissed you off more? This pissed me off more. The consistent amount of recaps that they show on this show. It's like, oh my gosh. I understand. I gave him a pass, I remember, in early pandemic, because it's like they couldn't do shit, but there's no excuses anymore here. You're way into the pandemic. How many...
It's a recap. It's Raw recap.
Yeah. The show recaps of stuff they already recapped earlier in the show. Of when Kairi Sane got taken out. What a great thing. And then Asuka said that she's out for revenge, so she wants to face Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. Let's also remind everyone, by the way, they needed a top babyface because Becky Lynch went out pregnant at this time. And Asuka was the clear choice to make a top babyface at this time. They were doing a bunch of stupid shit with Asuka. Could never retain a championship. They losing a belt by countout. And then Vince wondered, how come Asuka couldn't replace Becky as a babyface? Because she kept doing stupid shit like this with Asuka. No wonder why she never got over as like the top babyface. And then the Golden Role Models come out. By the way, the way this segment is structured, by the way, it's as if the Shayna Baszler Sasha Banks match didn't even happen. If they didn't even mention they just had a match. They just came out like this was a new segment type of thing. Like, what are you doing? And the Golden Role Models talk about how they're the best tag team in the WWE because they were the only tag team, women's-wise, in WWE. Because all the tag teams were breaking up at the time because Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon were taking over the show. And Sasha says that she'll face Asuka for the belt if she can defeat Bayley next week on Raw. Which that was good because, you know, they were teasing the dissension. Bayley had this look on her face like, what the hell type of thing. So that part was good. And then Shayna pops up out of nowhere like a ghost and says that I'm actually rooting for Asuka to win the Raw Women's Championship just so that way I can choke you out and take the title from you. You would have thought, okay, they're building the SummerSlam match. Nothing comes of this. It pivots to Shayna Baszler teaming up with Nia Jax and taking the women's tag belts for no reason against the Golden Role Models. And I know you're thinking to yourself, they had to send the Golden Role Models over to Raw. They didn't have top teams. They didn't have top opponents for Asuka to face. There was an opponent for Asuka to face for the Raw Women's title at SummerSlam. It was Shayna Baszler. What are you doing this shit for? Like, this is just awful. Like, awful booking right now. What did you think of this?
Not good at all. Terrible.
And this is when, like, the Golden Role Models were just everywhere. They were all over the place on this show. Like, it was just, what are you doing? Then, we had Angel Gaza and Demi. Remember this person, Demi Burnett. I don't even know if you remember who that is, but she exists.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was showing up on Raw. They're backstage. Angel Gaza has her put a phone number into his phone. He's trying to hit on her pretty much. And then Zelina Vega and Andrade come up. And they talk about how they're going to win, Angel Gaza and Andrade are going to win the Raw Tag Team titles. And they say that they're going to take them from the Street Profits. And Zelina Vega wants Angel Gaza to be focused. That was it. The segment didn't set up anything. It was a waste of time. They just wanted this. They wanted to showcase Debbie Burnett because she was the celebrity. So they needed a reason for her to be on the show. This was terrible. What did you think of this?
Not good. Just really, really awful.
Oh, by the way, if you remember too, Debbie Burnett kept coming back for no reason. She kept coming back. There was no, I mean, obviously, pandemic, she had nothing to do, but, like, they kept putting her back for no reason. She'd be in this random storyline that didn't make any sense, if you remember. She just kept coming back. Yeah.
Just not, it was awful.
And then later in the show, during the exclusive, she gets interviewed, and she talks about, like, how big of a wrestling fan she was. They were promoting The Bachelorette at this time because that was going to air. And then I remember Charlie Caruso asked, so what do you got going on these days? Can't exactly ask that question because no one had anything going on at this time. It's quarantine. What are you asking that question like that for? She's like, oh, quarantine. By the way, I like how she was able to mention the pandemic, but not heaven forbid if any of the wrestlers mention the pandemic. So
not allowed.
Yeah, not allowed. Then we had Raw Underground. I think we missed the first bit. This we'll just talk about it. So we decided these are matches, but we're not going to do style ratings for Raw Underground because they're not technically matches.
They're just terrible.
Yeah. So I think this happened earlier, but I forgot to talk about it. So we have Raw Underground. Shane McMahon. There's this guy that wins Raw Underground somehow. And who does he put in? None other than, remember, Dabba-Kato. He's the first person you really see have a Raw Underground fight. And there's no ropes there. It's just backstage at the PC. I don't know where it is in the PC, but it's very, and it looks like a pub, pretty much. Like a bar, smoke all around. If you probably forget this. Do you remember the first week they had, essentially strippers dancing around Raw Underground,
yep.
If you remember. Remember they
got rid of that? Interesting.
Remember they got rid of that real quick. That was gone the next week, right?
It was.
And Shane McMahon says, look at this, it's Raw Underground. We're going to do things edgier, that's grittier. It's Raw Underground. It's essentially, I guess the best way to describe Raw Underground is I think a lot of people describe it as the Brawl for Raw, except cinematic, pretty much. I think that's so Dabba-Kato gets into the ring. I don't even know who the guy is that he faces, but he basically destroys this guy. He does an overhead suplex, and I was thinking this is kind of good to watch this because it's gonna train you to know the rules for NXT Underground. I still don't know the rules because the match, there's a referee at the end, but the Underground fights don't end until Shane said, "Oh, that's it, he's done." Like Shane would just say, "Oh, he's done, he's all done." And then I think Dabba-Kato faced like somebody else, and he destroyed that guy really easily. And I think you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is like a Rumble type of thing that you see. You have to beat the big guy. But let's get to the Raw Underground segment part 2. Eric faces a jobber, and Eric just pummels this guy. He does a really good half and half German suplex. He kicks him out of the ring. I'm like, okay, so you kick him out of the ring, that's how it ends. Nope, the match continues. There's like I didn't even mention this too. There's like an audience there, like it's PC recruits clearly. That it's like a lumberjack match. They just sit down and chant around and all that type of stuff. They have masks on, obviously, because it was pandemic. I'm surprised they're allowed to wear masks because Vince, didn't want to talk about it. Then they throw the guy back there. Eric. I almost said Eric Rowan, but Eric from the Viking Raiders hits a high knee.
Rowan, baby.
Hits a high knee on this guy and Shane just says, "Oh, the match is over. It's done. It's done." All right. Well, there's one more fight tonight on Raw Underground. That's it. I don't even know what I just talked about. I don't even know what I just saw, but this happened. I don't even know what to say about this. Like this was awful. I appreciate trying something new, but this was not the new thing to try. How about book better storylines? How about that? What did you think of this Raw Underground? The first because this was really the first the first impressions we really saw of Raw Underground with these two fights, the Dabba-Kato fights and the Eric fights. What did you think of these?
When I think of them, terrible. There was no structure. There was no fucking rules. I hope that on NXT, for us, which is tomorrow night because we're taping this on Monday, that they explain what the fucking rules are.
Yeah.
Because instead we got Shane going, okay, that's it. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's it. What is it? What are the rules? Is it knockout? Is it fucking pinfall? Is it a disqualification? Is it throw him out of the ring? What the fuck is it? Because there was a couple of times where it was like they would get tossed out of the ring and then come right back in.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, what the fuck are we doing here? Explain what the fuck it is.
all it was like, oh, this is Raw Underground, and then they just did Raw Underground. There was no like explanation of what anything was. How hilarious was it too? The guy that has the worst work shoot punches in all of the WWE is the guy that's hosted Raw Underground. That actually is kind of funny to think about. Actually, that's
It's ironic.
Yeah. Shane was sweaty here too during Raw Underground.
Very.
If you remember. If you remember too, there's a segment later on where you think too I don't know if they're strippers, the woman that dance around. You think that that's just the thing that happens. Shane actually if you remember, he goes and like cuts a promo with the woman, like they're just dancing around. He's like with them, like.
That's that was so bizarre.
And the look on Shane's face, like it was just so weird, like.
It's bizarre.
And let's also talk about this too. I think a lot of people think it was just Raw Underground that was bad on this show and nothing else. This show was already it was going down a cliff fast before Raw Underground even came on, type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And Raw Underground just like knocked it off the cliff. And the show, by the way, it was not even over yet. By the way, we still had an hour left by the time Raw Underground comes on.
I thought, yeah, I almost like exclusively remember it like ending like a half an hour early.
Yeah.
And being like, wait a minute, I thought this would be the main event.
But there was more. Oh, by the way, here's the next thing. We got Angelo Dawkins with Montez Ford inside versus Angel Garza with Andrade and Zelina Vega inside. I don't know what you're thinking, Chris. This can't be bad. I remember this being relatively good. Let's talk about the feud. Remember, this was like forever. They were doing this match. There was the Street Profits was Andrade and Angel Garza. Because they had no teams to feud with, so they had to keep doing this match over and over again.
Over and over and over again. Like there was gonna be something that was new.
And yet Vince kept breaking up all the tag teams on the on Raw. So, yeah. They were supposed to have a match at Mania, but then Andrade got injured, so it didn't happen. And then they just did the match here. The Street Profits cut a promo because Andrade and Angel Garza had become #1 contenders to the belts a week before this, and they attacked them. And the Street Profits do a promo. If you remember, I think this is the first time they did like this entrance through the pandemic crowd. And if you remember, they got shat on the next day because it was supposed to be COVID. The whole thing of the barriers was supposed to protect them from COVID, and they're going in there doing that. That really wasn't very good. You saw early signings of Von Wagner. Who else did you see in there that's there? I think you saw Trick Williams in there. You saw Shotzi in there. You saw Caden Carter in there. Your favorite, Chris, Caden Carter.
Yeah.
There was somebody else you saw there that's like a big star nowadays. I was going to say Tito Sabatelli, but he was fired around this time. If you remember, he was fired around this time. I know this is off topic, but I think it was reported he was like a rat to AEW type of thing. So he's like banned from AEW now, Tito Sabatelli, if you remember. Like he's not allowed to go there. Huh?
Which is funny.
Yeah. And now they're both banned from the entire business right now. So, yeah. But the Street Profits cut this decent promo talking about how they got attacked, and the Street Profits talk about how they're more of a tag team than Andrade and Angel Garza, and they're gonna retain the Raw tag team titles. It was a pretty decent promo, very scripted. You could tell Vince definitely wrote a lot of their lines. Like you could look at the difference between how the Street Profits acted in the Vince era versus the Triple H era. It's very different, promo wise, anyways. And then it's time for the match. And during the match, Montez Ford, I think this will jog your memory once I talk about this. He has this drink that the Street Profits always drink. And he doesn't like his drink for some reason. I think you know where I'm going with this, if you remember now. But the match starts. And Montez Ford dominates this match, pretty much. He does a really good pounce, and he sends, Garza into the not the barricade, but like the structure that blocks the plexiglass that blocks the recruits and everything like that. So that was cool. And then not Montez Ford. Angelo Dawkins is dominating this match. He's hitting all his moves on him. And then eventually Montez Ford collapses to the floor. He just falls, and this distracts Angelo Dawkins, and it allows Angel Gaza to hit a super kick and like a missile drop kick, and it causes Angelo Dawkins to lose. Okay. Few problem with this. Vince loved booking these matches where the baby faces would hit all the moves and the heel would hit like 2 moves and the baby face would lose. You ever notice that? He loved
that.
Yeah, the baby face would get all the offense in, and the heel would get like it would hit the so it wouldn't even be their finish, by the way, too. They would hit like a random move that like they never win with, and they would just lose. Like that doesn't even make any sense.
Always.
How does that get anybody?
They always did that.
How does that get anybody over, by the way? Like, Angel Gaza's not over from this, as you can tell, because he's not any higher in the company. And Angelo Dawkins didn't get any more over from this. Both guys look stupid booking a match like this. This was Vince's favorite type of match to book, though. The babyface would get all this offense and get all the momentum, and then they would just lose after, like, 2 moves. It would never be their finish. And then we'll come back to the Montez Ford part of the storyline, because obviously he's not all there at the moment. But what did you think of the Angelo Dawkins Angel Gaza match? I give the match like 1 star, by the way. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even their fault. It was just the way Vince structured the match.
Yeah, I give it. It's bad. It's just bad.
And then and then you have Montez Ford with the same people inside. Angelo Dawkins versus Andrade with Angel Gaza and Zelina Vega inside. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Chris, how can this be bad? Montez Ford and Andrade are awesome. Well, Montez Ford can't do any of the moves that gets him over. He can't do any of his high spots because he has to sell the fact that he's like that he's basically out on his feet pretty much, so he can't even do any of his high flying moves. What a way! Vince loved doing that, doing stuff to limit your wrestlers that gets them over to begin with. That was Vince's.
Oh, I know, that's terrible.
So Andrade dominates because Montez Ford has to sell the fact that he like collapsed onto the floor. And right when Montez Ford starts mounting his comeback, he hits a dive on the outside. He forgot to sell the fact that like he was almost out on his feet. All of a sudden, he was all fine. All of a sudden, and then when he does his dive, right when he starts I can't really say right when the crowd gets into it because the crowd's fake. But right when like he gets any momentum, he just collapses to the floor before he can even get any offense in. And then the ref has to call the match, and we find something's wrong with Montez Ford right here. We don't know what's wrong with him. He just fainted for no reason. I think you knew where this was going, but yeah, this was also a star. Montez Ford and Andrade tried their best to have a good match, but Vince just really limited what they could do because they had to sell this stupid storyline. What do you think of this? This was awful.
This is terrible. It was awful.
Then Murphy's backstage. Oh, by the way, both these matches, by the way, were combined probably 5 minutes. By the way, they were not long matches at all. I know Dawkins and Garza had a commercial break, so I guess that was it. But the stuff you saw on screen was probably like a combined total of 5 minutes. It was just terrible. Vince hates wrestling on this show, apparently. You're not allowed to have a long wrestling match, apparently. And by the way, this is the last match that happens the whole show. This is essentially a main event match of the show. Everything else is just segments. So no buys right there. Then we had Murphy backstage. He's watching the clip from last week of when he had to take out Aleister Black's eye. Seth Rollins comes up. This is when he's in his Monday Night Messiah gimmick. And he tells Murphy that he did the right thing. Someday you'll understand that, sacrifices have to be made. And he said that this was for a greater good. Aleister Black will come out a better person from this, which he didn't. But Murphy then asked Seth Rollins, are you going to accept Dominic Mysterio's challenge at SummerSlam? And he's like trying to talk Seth out of doing this, saying that Dom has never been in the ring before. You need to leave the Mysterio family alone. And Seth just doesn't say anything. He just laughs and walks away. So I liked this, though. I liked what they were doing here with Murphy and Seth Rollins. It's too bad they break them up in like 2 months. It's too bad, but I liked this. What'd you think of this?
Yeah, I mean it was good it was good, but yeah, it didn't last very long.
Then we had Raw Underground Part 3. I think this is the Eric Rowan fight, actually. So we already covered this. So, It was a thing that happened. We already talked about it, so we don't need to talk about it again. Then Charlie Caruso's backstage. She's trying to get an update of what happened with Montez Ford, and then she gets distracted by Angel Gaza, because if you remember, they were randomly added a storyline where she wanted Angel Gaza, if you remember. That was a thing. And Charlie Caruso accuses them of being a part of what happened to Montez Ford, but they deny it. And then Angela Dawkins comes out. And this happened on a wrestling show. Angela Dawkins reveals that Montez Ford was poisoned. Why are you doing a poison storyline on a wrestling show? That doesn't translate. And then Bianca Belair comes out, and she knows that Andrade, Zelina Vega, and Angel Garza were a part of this. And she wants answers, but they don't give them answers, so it leads to a brawl between Bianca Belair and Zelina Vega. This is at the point, by the way, where Bianca Belair was called up, and they just didn't use her for a while, and then they just randomly started using her again. You never would have believed that Bianca Belair was winning the Royal Rumble if you watched this segment. Like, I don't think anyone would have believed that. Yeah, Chris, what did you think of this segment right here, this barn burner?
Pretty horrendous.
They did a poison storyline on a wrestling show. How great is that?
It's interesting. Terrible, to say the least.
Would you have...
Very fucking bad.
If I went back in time to 2020 Chris, well, first you'd probably be asking me for a vaccine since I'd be vaccinated, but would you have believed that Bianca Belair was going to win the Royal Rumble if I had told you after watching this segment?
No.
Yeah, you'd be telling me to leave. By the way, be like, yeah, that's totally not. I feel like too. You probably think about it too. I remember these segments happened. By the way, they all started at the Poison segment, Raw Underground, and then the next segment we're going to talk about in a second. I didn't know they were all I didn't know they were all on the same show. I thought they were all on different shows. You could just definitely tell Vince was trying to get people to stick to watching Raw.
Oh yeah.
Which how about just have a good. I like, by the way, because we have this perspective now, right? Where, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, Triple H, when he took over, he didn't do any of this stupid stuff to get people to watch. He organically made Raw great. He didn't do, like, oh, we're going to do Raw Underground. We're going to, have lights flicker on and off, and we're going to, book a Poison storyline. He didn't do any of that shit.
He didn't need to.
Yeah. Vince felt like he needed to, though. Speaking of which, let's talk about the next segment. Tom Phillips, Samoa Joe, and Byron Saxton are breaking down what's going to happen next week on Raw. They talk about how next week it's going to be Asuka versus Bayley. I just remember we did do a career retrospective on the Street Profits because we got so busy talking about this. Pretty much what happens is they would kept the Raw tag titles. They got drafted to SmackDown as Raw tag champs, and they had to do the belt swap. The first time they ever did that bullshit. So they became the SmackDown tag champs. You realize they never actually won the SmackDown tag titles, actually won them. They got gifted them, if you think about it.
Fuck yeah, let's go. Gift them all. Gift all the fucking titles to each other.
And then they lost the SmackDown tag titles in 2021. And then they've been like a top tag team, I'll say, but they've never. I don't think they haven't been tag champs since the pandemic, right? Since because I think the Usos have been the champs the whole time, and then okay, bro. So I think they've just been like a top tag team competing for the belts and everything like that. Montez Ford's broken out too. He's had a few singles matches for the U.S. title and everything like that, so he's done fairly well and stuff like that. And we've done a career retrospective on Andrade, I think. No, we haven't actually. No, we haven't.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. Andrade wasn't. He was pretty much out of the company after this. I think he left in 2021. He was pretty much on the way out, pretty much by this point. Which you can't blame him. He was being used like shit at this time. And then he went to AEW. He was instantly a mid-carder. And that's basically his career. He just recently came back, and it looked like they're gonna do something with him, which they have to because his contract is up soon. So. And then Angel Gaza, he would continue singles. He didn't really do much. He won the 24/7 title like once, and then just really didn't do much with it. I think he lost it like shortly after that. He teamed up with his cousin Umberto, and they're kind of starting to do something in NXT now. It's basically the career retrospective of an Angel Garza right there. And then, yeah, it's pretty pathetic, huh? It's not that very long. And then as for Zelina Vega, ironically enough, has benefited the most out of that faction. The manager, which is weird. She would get fired later in the year because of the whole Twitch thing and trying to start like a union in wrestling. She got fired for that. Then she was brought back in 2021. She won the Queen of the Ring, the first and only woman to do that, which was instantly forgotten about. She started doing that terrible accent, if you remember, where like she tried to do like the Queen gimmick and couldn't do it very well. And then I think she was injured, right? She got injured while in that gimmick, and then she came back with Legado del Fantasma, started out as heels, and now they're baby faces with the LWO with Rey Mysterio. And Rey has both. We should mention we didn't do this. Rey has both eyes now. By the way, Rey's okay. We never mentioned that. Rey is fine. Isn't that good? Rey has both.
He can see through both of his eyeballs.
Isn't that great?
Consider that they never lost use of it to begin with.
Isn't it? By the way, isn't it weird that it was never mentioned during his Hall of Fame speech? He never mentioned that in his Hall of Fame speech that he had that he lost an eye in the wrestling business. So. And then we have we pretty much did a quick retrospective on Demi Burnett. I forgot to look it up because no
one cares about it either.
Yeah, so I don't even think she does anything anymore. So let's get to the next thing that happens. Remember this, Chris? The security cam footage that was shown as they were breaking down. They also broke down that it was gonna be Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns, Randy Orton next week. Well, wait, a little early on the Roman Reigns return right there. I was a little early on that, huh?
Very early.
Yeah, he's still not due back. I don't know what. I guess Kevin Owens wanted that feud to happen. So I'm like, oh, Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns wasn't even on Raw at the time. How was that gonna happen? So,
they would have found a way.
But then they say, oh, we just got the security cam footage. Tom Phillips said that happened earlier today. I can't believe
you just got it?
Yeah.
You can tell me you had no access to any security cameras whatsoever, and then you now just have access to it in your own building?
Do you remember this segment, Chris? Should I let you break down the security cam footage that happens? Do you remember what happened here?
Not a fucking clue.
Well, I'll tell you. We see these guys come out with masks. There's this generator that's like hooked up and anything and stuff like that. And now you remember this, right?
Yeah.
There's
the power or something like that, or something stupid.
They like light the generator on fire and it like explodes. I think it's like they use like a Molotov cocktail to like light the generator on fire. They're all like, yeah, they're all like happy that they lit it on fire, by the way, and all that type of stuff. Like, this was the first thing you ever saw of Retribution, was doing this. This was bad.
Not good at all.
A lot of. Do you remember when people were shitted on this? By the way, they were like, "Give it time. It's only the first segment. Retribution's gonna be great." I feel like if this is the first thing you saw of Retribution. By the way, I think Vince was trying to capitalize on the Black Lives Matters like movements of all the riots and stuff that were going on back then. So it's like that's what Retribution was. This was
terrible.
Yeah, this was awful. Like, yeah, what a great way to debut the high-profile faction. You didn't see
they already had a name.
Yeah, they already had a name. They had a name there, but they didn't have a name on the show. If you know, they don't call them that. They were like, oh, Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton.
Who are these people? Who are they? These people.
Yeah.
Who are they?
By the way, you can definitely tell that the people that show up on this video were completely different than who actually ended up being in Retribution. Like, they were not the same people.
Oh, yeah, it was different people. Because they were all small.
Yeah. So what happened? Did they just, like what happened? Like,
they were like, there's not enough tall people in that stable. We need tall people now.
Yeah. Do you want to do because I think you've been waiting for this probably for a while. Do you want to do a quick career retrospective on Retribution? What ended up happening with Retribution?
They immediately flopped instantly on the when they got called up. They brought in Mia Yim, Mercedes Martinez, Brennan Williams, and Dijak. And Mercedes Martinez immediately quit the group, saying that she didn't want to be put under a mask, and went back down to NXT. And the others had to suffer. From the get-go, they were just terrible.
Remember the names they had?
T-Bar, Mace, Reckoning. And Shane Thorne, too, was Slapjack.
Yeah.
I was into someone else I'm forgetting, too.
Theo Madden.
Yeah. So,
but he's
yeah, that's who Brendan Williams was. It was Dio Madden.
Yeah.
But it was Mace, T-Bar, Slapjack, and Reckoning, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Mustafa Ali made it 5. And then Ali was eventually added to it, and it didn't make it any better. Because they just turned on him anyway, not long after that.
Yeah.
Like months later. It lasted like a little bit, but they turned on him eventually.
Do you remember the first thing that happens that Mustafa Ali's revealed as the leader is the Fiend beats the shit out of him? Do you remember that happened?
Yeah. And then they because he was like in a tag team or a stable with, I think it was like Ricochet and someone else.
Cedric Alexander.
It was before Cedric joined the Hurt Business.
Yeah.
Because they were like, because Ali was kind of with them, and Cedric was kind of was about to turn.
Yeah. And
he had to choose between them and the Hurt Business, not the Hurt Business, the shitty group.
Yeah.
And then he decided to join the crappy group, and yeah, Retribution. Forgot what they were for a second because they're so terrible.
If you think about it, only one person is stuck with that name pretty much, and that's Mace. He's Marseille now, so...
Yeah, it's the only person who actually stuck with... Although Dijak doesn't want to be T-Bar online, but he has to be because it's a fucking rule.
So... why is that? Because didn't he try to get it changed on Instagram or whatever?
Because it's like... It's a certain amount of days that you have to keep it for. I forget because Saray is still Saray WWE, even though she went back to Japan, where she's Saray again.
Yeah.
But her Instagram still says Saray WWE.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much longer it is. I think it might be changed for Dijak now.
I should check.
But for the longest time, he would go online being like, I can't change my name. It's not letting me.
Yeah.
Because I have to wait a certain amount of days for it to be changed.
No, he's Dijak now.
Okay, so it changed for him. Yeah. I think it was like 60 days or something like that.
He still, I was going to say he still has the Justice to Serve, but I forget that he made that his gimmick now. So I'm like, because remember, I think that was Retribution's whole thing. So
yeah, it was Jay. Yeah, that's.
But yeah.
So it's changed. It's back to a normal thing. But for the longest freaking time, he was like, because people ask him if he's going to change his like Instagram name, and he's like, I can't change it for like 30 or 60 days or something like that.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
But yeah, like Marseille is really the one that's stuck with that name now. Which Max Dupree / LA Knight's probably the only one that's been able to say that name and get it over, probably. So
yeah,
because he's just that talented, you know.
Because they've ruined it already.
Yeah, but
they destroyed that name.
I think the best thing that ever happened with Retribution was when Mustafa Ali made that theme song, like 2 years after like they broke up. Remember, it was like we talked about it. He did like the boy band version of it. So, that
was hilarious.
When he was like supposed to go, well, I guess he's still going heel, but when he was like going heel the first time this year, so yeah, it was awesome. But this was bad. Continuing the Hurt Business are backstage. Charlie Caruso. By the way, how many times you saw the Hurt Business like 4 times on this show? Like, I like the Hurt Business, but it's like, come on, like.
You could tell that they kind of showcased the Hurt Business at this time.
Yeah, but it was like you didn't need to show them like 4 times on this show.
Yeah, they were showed a lot during this stage of the pandemic.
Yeah, but
because they were the only ones that were like I guess, healthy enough, or
Yeah, like a top, like
yeah, like because a lot of the talent weren't showing up.
yeah. But the Hurt Business were backstage. They, um, yeah, Charlie Caruso and it comes up to interview them, and they talk about the injustices that they've had to face tonight. She even mentions it's a good thing Bobby Lashley didn't have a match because he probably would have lost. Like, yeah, great journalism right there, Charlie. What a great. But you know, they talk about how we heard about this thing called Raw Underground going down. We may have to go check that out. So, yeah, that we'll come back to that later. What do you think of this? I thought this promo was okay.
Just fine.
And then the end of the show was, well, at least in the PC, anyways, was Seth Rollins and Murphy come out to cut a promo. They talk about how they have some business to attend to. By the way, I should mention before they come out, they show like this 5-minute recap of everything that's gone down in the feud between Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. Vince just had to recap in the case you didn't see it. Do you remember too? He would do this every week. Anytime something new happened, he would just play the same video package every week of the Seth Rollins Rey Mysterio feud. Like it was every week.
Every fucking week, it was the same fucking video package with something slightly different added to it, or they played slightly different music.
Yeah.
Or they take a segment out, but there was almost the same exact fucking thing they would play every single week.
Vince loves showing recaps. You know, what can we say?
Raw recap.
Yeah. But they come out. Seth Rollins says, before we attend to our business, he points out Tom Phillips, and he says, you know, he talks about how he was an unbiased journalist because he was rooting for the fact that Dominic Mysterio was about to get his hands on Murphy and Seth Rollins and nearly take Seth Rollins' eye. And he says that you can't do that. You have to stay, you know, you have to be an unbiased journalist. I like how he's saying this to Tom Phillips, who he's not saying it to Samoa Joe or Byron Saxton. What a coincidence that is, because they're not supposed to be biased journalists. Samoa Joe supports the heels and Byron Saxton supports the faces. So what a coincidence he's only saying this to Tom Phillips. He tells Murphy, he says that a sacrifice needs to be made. He tells Murphy to take him, and then Joe's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. He tells Seth Rollins that, you know, he can either go back into the ring and say what he needs to say, or this can get physical. And Seth Rollins tells Samoa Joe to, you know, not be sacrificed, pretty much saying that, think about what you're going to do here. And Samoa Joe says, yeah, I'll think about it. It leads to a fight. They cut the break actually during this. And it's really funny. So did Joe just stay out there during the whole commercial break? Like if you meant to think this was actually live? If
he had to, just forced.
Yeah. But then they grab chairs. Samoa Joe, before he gets into the ring, though, Dominic Mysterio comes up from behind. He waylays Murphy and Seth with the kendo stick. He beats the crap out of him. He hits a 619 on Seth. And he hits a double dive onto everybody. You could definitely tell he didn't quite stick the landing on that dive, but it still looked pretty good. And then Seth says that he's had enough of this, and he accepts Dominic Mysterio's challenge for SummerSlam. And the match was made official at SummerSlam. Do you remember the tagline of SummerSlam was "You'll never see it coming"? Well, we know why that ended up being the tagline, but because we talked about in the Payback retro. But that's when they were like really annoyingly saying you'll never see it coming. Like it was so annoying at that point. But what did you think of the segment here between Dominic Mysterio, Seth Rollins, Murphy, and Samoa Joe?
I thought this was great. And I like how they had like Joe tease like he was gonna like aid Dominic, and like he was heavy in Dominic's corner at this point. Like he was fucking rooting for him. Like on commentary, he's being very like biased towards Dominic. Yeah. And I think it made it more like a better segment because of it.
Yeah.
Because Joe couldn't wrestle. We thought it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at this point, like Joe was coming off his second concussion.
Yeah.
And they wanted to play it safe with him. But we thought it was going to happen at one point. And because he kind of stood up.
Mm-hmm.
From the commentary desk and was like ready to beat the crap out of Seth.
Yeah, it was awesome. He remember too. They because that was like when he was coming off that field like right before he got injured too. If you remember too.
Yeah.
Seth so started
against it was Seth. It was it was Joe and Kevin Owens with randomly the Big Show versus Seth Rollins and not the Ascension, Authors of Pain.
Yeah.
AOP Authors of Pain. That was right around that time again. He got hurt again, and I think at that point, Vince just wanted to keep him on the show, but wanted to keep him safe. So instead of like risk, further brain injury, he just decided to keep him off permanently.
Yeah.
And never used him in a wrestling capacity again. And it showed because Triple H tried to use him in a wrestling capacity again, and it didn't go over too well.
Yeah, Vince basically got rid of him right away, pretty much. So
almost instantly after he won the NXT title again for a second time.
Yeah. But I liked this. This is actually one of those segments too that works. Like I think it wouldn't have worked if you tried to do this out of the pandemic. Like it worked in the pandemic too. Like the way Joe was talking to him and everything like that too. Like this.
That Joe was generally like pissed off at Seth.
Yeah.
Which made it even better.
And I think though because they don't have to like Joe was able to because Joe. I think it still probably would have worked, but it's definitely one of those segments that works better in the pandemic type of thing.
Oh yeah. Because Joe was extremely disgusted with what happened with Ray.
Yeah.
And he was super on the side of Ray and Dominic.
And after this, Tom Phillips doesn't talk at all on commentary. He was so nervous to say anything too, because he was about to have his eye probably like punctured and all that type of stuff. Which and then he couldn't face fuck anyone anymore. Like
I couldn't face fuck anyone. Face fuck Phillips.
Yeah. So
wouldn't see. He wouldn't be able to see.
Now I know you're thinking, Chris.
Fucking couches and shit.
Yeah. I know you're thinking, Chris. This had to have been the end of the show, right? Like this seems like the end of the show. It wasn't the end of the show for some reason. It was the Raw Underground had one more segment.
This show felt like it's dragged for the last like hour of the show.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it's like to get to that point with Ray, with Dom and Seth, which is the fucking best part of the whole night. Yeah. By the way.
Well, the Drew and Randy
continuously was for a while.
Drew and Randy was good though.
Yeah, Drew. Yeah, actually, yeah. Those two were the best, I guess, feuds like in this pandemic era, in the 2020 era.
Yeah,
of the pandemic.
Because Roman still isn't due. Roman doesn't come back. Still doesn't come back for like he's still not due back for a little. Because it's built in a SummerSlam, but Roman doesn't come back for still a little bit
until after SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean basically wrestling doesn't go back to normal until the Thunderdome's still like
At least it like the Thunderdome for like all that it was. At least it felt like a real type of arena. Like they were in the Amway Center, then they were Tropicana Field. So it felt like it was like a real wrestling event.
Yeah, this wasn't feeling like we were still they were still adjusting, I guess.
Yes.
And if you notice, I was going to talk about this. I think why the last hour, if you remember the last hour of Raw. Up until Triple H took over, pretty much, the ratings always fell. If you notice, Vince put the Poison storyline, the Raw Underground, and the Retribution reveal at the last hour of the show. So that's why it dragged so much. Because
there's so much shit going on in this last hour.
Yeah, there's no matches. There was not one match. I don't think in the last hour of Raw. Which is terrible.
Vince always liked to do that.
Yeah.
Segment heavy in the last hour.
Yeah. Which is, not a bad thing, but it's like, wow. All the segments were bad. Like,
yeah. Well, not the Dom and Seth segment with Joe was really good. And Murphy.
That was good, yeah. It just sucks it's just filled with
it gets sandwiched in between a lot of shit.
But let's get to the actual last thing of Raw. So Raw Underground's happening. Dolph Ziggler, I think it's Dolph Ziggler that's there. If you remember, he's randomly in Raw Underground for some reason.
Made no sense.
He had like
I get his like. Well, I get why he's there now. Like looking back on it now, like his athletic background, being an amateur wrestler and whatnot. Yeah. So he kind of felt at home in that sort of like, in that sort of venue, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I thought there was gonna be more. That's why I didn't say anything. But he puts out a guy with a sleeper hold. The guy tapped, but Shane didn't call it off until like the guy was like lawn tapping before like he went out too.
I remember that dude. That guy was tapping for like a good minute before Shane was like, okay, that's it. He's done. Like, Shane was waiting to see if he was dead
Yeah.
before he's like, okay, this guy's not breathing anymore, Shane, let's go. Poor guy. Does he have any oxygen left in his fucking brain? He's unconscious, he's dead, there's no brain activity.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And
Scrape
then
him off the map.
the Hurt Business come in and say, so this is what Wild Underground is, huh? This is what Wild Underground is, and they basically take over Wild Underground. Dolph just disappears. I don't know where he goes. He just gone.
He just one second he was there, 1 second it was kaboof. Poof, he was gone.
Yeah.
He disappeared out of thin air.
And then basically they challenge people to get into the ring. If you remember, Cool Hand Ange actually makes a Wild Underground appearance. Bobby Lashley lays waste to Cool Hand Ange. What was his name in WWE? I don't even remember what it was.
It wasn't Matt Menard. It was
Yeah, was it Chase Parker? Or was that his AEW name?
I forget what they were, but I'll look it up.
But yeah, Bobby Lashley wrecks him, and then Dio Madden. This is proof, by the way, he wasn't always meant to be in Retribution because he was at Wild Underground when Retribution debuted.
It was Matt Martell.
Okay, Matt Martell. There you go.
And Chase Parker.
Okay. So I said the other name. Did I call him Matt Minone's name? I don't even know what I did. So.
Yeah, if it was Matt Menard, it was Matt Martell.
Yeah, but Shelton Benjamin does a really good takedown and beats the shit out of Dio Madden. And basically, the Hurt Business just wreck everyone in Raw Underground. They take it over. And they say, this is now our house. And Shane's like, oh, that was awesome. What else is going to happen on Raw Underground? Tune in next week. Guess what? Nothing comes of this because the Hurt Business don't even show up to Raw Underground for like, what, weeks? I mean,
weeks?
They take it over.
I think they showed up the next week. And then they didn't show up ever again after that.
Yeah.
Or it's like they showed up one time weeks later. I forget what it was. Because I don't think it was the following week. I think it was like 2 weeks after that.
Yeah. And that was Raw Underground, the first impression. I love, too, the women are still dancing as this beatdowns happen. Like, they don't even care. They just keep doing their thing. It's like, that's not realistic. That's not even realistic at all. Like, these people invade your club and just beat the crap out of everyone. You're still doing your job and dancing. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like,
hoes gotta be hoes.
Yeah, I guess so. Would have been cool if they should have had the Godfather host Raw Underground. That would have been awesome. That would have made sense because he was the Godfather, and if you remember, he was like one of his other gimmicks. He was like Kama Mustafa, like a MMA.
Yeah, Kama Mustafa, or Kama the Supreme Fighting Machine.
Yeah, so that's why Raw Underground is so much worse when you actually watch it back. It's so much worse than you remember. You think it's like I think a lot of people didn't really know how to feel about the show at the time because they're like, well, at least WWE did something new. But you kind of watch it back now, and it's like, yeah, this sucks. This was not the thing to do. Like, Vince should have just actually like done the Triple H method and actually like built this show from the ground up type of thing. Like, it seemed like Vince panicked when he got. I think why Underground, Retribution, and the Poison storyline happened is Vince panicked when he got asked about the ratings, and that's why
yes.
Definitely because I did mention, like, Vince got asked on his cue call more than usual about the ratings. Like, it was like every question was a ratings then. So Vince clearly panicked and basically put the show together. I feel like he wrote this show, too, like, last minute. I say last minute because I remember some shows were taped. This show definitely felt like it was rewritten by Vince the last minute. And, yeah, he called Shane, wanted to get Shane back. It's just, this show was awful. The only thing that saves the show is the U.S. title match. It really doesn't save it all that much. The Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton face-to-face. Can you believe that happened on the show? We just talked about it. It's really hard to believe that happened. And it was on this show. And the Dominic Mysterio, Seth Rollins storyline they had going on. That's the only thing that saved the show. This show would be an F if that stuff wasn't on there. But I'm putting it up to a D, a solid D, just because the Drew and Randy and the Seth and Dominic Mysterio feud really saved this show from being bad. So, what did you think of the first episode of Raw Underground?
I will say it this way. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be generous with this because this show, flat out, sucked dick. From beginning to end. It was a clusterfuck. There was storylines that didn't make any fucking sense. Raw Underground talk about a shitty way to introduce your new thing that's supposed to change your ratings around, along with Retribution, your new biggest stable that you fucking forgot about.
Yeah.
Just garbage all around. By the way, Retribution never gets any better.
Yeah.
Raw Underground doesn't get any better. It stays the fucking same. Besides the whores there dancing around, they're gone by the next week. Literally, they're gone the next week. They're not there anymore.
But what happens? We never find out what happens to them. Do they just don't show? I guess they did it.
They're just done. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, where's the girls? Where the okay? It's just a fucking dingy room now with a bunch of dudes in it, fucking lazily wrestling each other.
Yeah.
With Shane McMahon saying, that's it. And then guess what? Raw Underground goes into fucking mothballs for fucking years.
Mm-hmm.
Until they randomly decided to bring it out for this week.
Yeah.
Like, I hope to God they explain it, but this is just a fucking shitty episode of Raw during a shitty time of the year where, you know, it was just a shitty time of the year.
Yeah.
It was the only thing on, for the most part. Baseball just started back up. Hockey, everything was just starting back up again. With no fans. It was just awful. But yeah, like, I give it a fucking D-. Just solely on the fact that Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton thing, and Dom, and Samoa Joe, and Buddy Murphy, and Seth Rollins.
I might lower it to a D- also, because there is one thing that's also bad about this show. None of the stuff that happens on the show, it's gone by Mania time, pretty much. Retribution breaks up before Mania. Raw Underground, it only lasts like 2 months. And then the Poison storyline is blown off by like 2 weeks. So everything.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks later. I think Bianca debuts and like beats Zelina Vega, and then that's it. And it's never mentioned again.
Yeah. So everything that Vince set up on the show did not stick around for more than a year. So
utter garbage.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that was supposed to save them during this pandemic that would boost the ratings up to where Vince needed the ratings to boost it to, guess what? Fell completely flat.
Yeah. It was terrible.
The shittiest way to introduce it, because they introduce it, then they have another whole hour of the show, and then at the end of the show, they do the Hurt Business segment with Raw Underground, and instead it should have been, the last 30 minutes of the show should have been Raw Underground.
Yeah. That was the thing, too. Vince always, like, put Raw Underground in randomly. Like, it would just randomly be in the show. Like, it would just be a random segment that would happen, too. Like,
it needed to close out the show every week, and it needed to be a better way to introduce it to your audience instead of just so fucking lazily done. It was lazily thrown in there in the show. It was lazily introduced, and it's like when they announced Shane was coming back, I was like, okay, maybe he's gonna wrestle. Like, this is gonna be cool. Like, Shane at this point was still good. His matches were still fine, and it's like he's like, oh, it's Raw Underground. I'm like, what the fuck is Raw Underground? And they never explained what it was. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to get invested in this if I don't know what the fuck it is?
Yeah.
They were like, there was rumors that it was going to be like the Brawl for All, and I was like, oh, that's cool, like, bringing that back again, but like, it wasn't at all the Brawl for All. It was something completely different.
And the worst thing about the show, by the way, there's only one match lasts longer than 5 minutes. Like, only one match. Like,
the terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Every match but one match.
Garbage. Two segments.
Every match but one match too had like a terrible finish in it too. Like, it was like
around this time, like Vince, like you said about the DQ on the outside during the Sasha Banks match against Shayna Baszler, like he would institute that, like if someone, like if your tag partner went into the ring and hit their opponent, they would get disqualified. And I was like, what the fuck? And then one day it just magically stopped.
Yeah.
Because, like, one of the heels got in the ring and, like, punched one of the faces once, and it was like, the match didn't end. I'm like, oh, now we're going to stop doing this now? It was like 3 weeks later, and he stopped doing it. I was like, okay, I guess we're not going to do this stupid thing anymore now.
Vince was panicking at the time. He was panicking. Like, he was just...
Oh, he was trying to do anything, like you said, like, throwing shit in a wall to see if it sticks. And guess what? None of it stuck.
Well, there was one thing that stuck. I honestly think it shows like these, we should be appreciative that, like, he finally relented and turned Roman Reigns heel. Like, we have to sit through these shows sometimes because I feel like if shows like these didn't happen, he wouldn't have finally relented and turned Roman heel. Like,
Yeah, it's just he needed to, and he relented. He finally did, and it gave us the best fucking thing in wrestling over the last 3.5 years.
yep.
More than that. More than that. More than 3.5 years.
So
I think.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's this Raw Underground, both D minuses. I was just saying this is the worst retro we've ever done. Think about it, this isn't even the worst retro we've ever done. Battleground 2013 and 2017, like, still is bad. That has a crowd. That has no like,
yes, this is no crowd. It's better than that, but it's trash. It's a 2-segment show. I will say this: if you want to go back and watch it, don't.
Yeah.
Give yourself the hour-and-a-half replay on Peacock or WWE Network or wherever you're watching it from. Just fucking save yourself the time.
Yeah.
Do not go back and watch it because it is pure trash.
Remember he brought back Raw Talk at this time randomly for no reason, because that happens on this show too. He brought back Raw Talk randomly for no reason.
Because he needed something again. See, like he said, like throw shit at the wall, see if it sticks. None of those things stuck. The Roman Reigns thing stuck out pretty big fat pile of shit that stuck on the wall.
Yeah.
But like, and not to say the thing is shit, but it's what stuck.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that stuck that was actually worth watching.
Yeah.
And we got some fucking amazing segments out of it over the last 2.5 years. It's over 2 years now. We've gotten the best fucking storylines, the best gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this because I posted in our chat. Roman Reigns is going on trial on Friday, baby. So watch SmackDown on Friday instead of watching this shit. Don't ever watch fucking Raw Underground. Watch our review of Raw Underground, but don't ever fucking watch Raw Underground because it's trash. We suffered through it 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I don't want to ever watch it ever again.
I had to suffer through it again last night.
Fucking terrible. Not worth anyone's time. Don't watch it ever again. I can guarantee you they're going to make it better on NXT, but it's still going to be trash. It's not going to be shit. It might be okay.
I don't know.
If they don't fucking explain it, and they just have them go out there and pretend like we know what's going on, it's going to be trash.
By the way, can we talk about, too, why Shawn Michaels of all things to bring fucking back? He chose fucking Raw Underground to bring back. Why of all things, Shawn? Why?
The fight pit would have been better.
Yeah.
The fight pit was actually done excellently.
That was in the pandemic, too, actually. That was in the pandemic, if you remember the first fight pit.
But they can't do that, though, again. They have to do they have to bring back fucking Raw Underground where there's no fucking rules that has anyone to explain it because no one knows the rules. Not even Shane, who was the fucking host of the goddamn thing, knew the rules.
So did Shawn Michaels just go and... Like, I don't even understand how he did. Did he just watch Raw Underground again one day and decide, that's... What about Raw Underground did Shawn Michaels go back and watch and decide to bring it back? I'm trying to figure this out.
If they do come out on Tuesday night, which is tomorrow for us, because we're recording this on Monday, and they have rules, and it's you only win by submission, or TKO, or choke, or whatever. I'd be like, okay, it's already better than it was when it was on Raw.
Yeah.
But we need to have rules to know what the fuck is going on, because if they just jump right into it, no one's going to know what the fuck is going on. Not everyone's going back and watching these pandemic Raws going, I wonder what Raw Underground's about. And they go on and like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
No one knows what's going on. There's a bunch of randos that no one even knows. And it's complete garbage. And it doesn't even last. Some of them don't even last longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They immediately get in the ring and they're tapping out within 30 seconds.
I don't understand it, yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? Like, just don't fucking watch any of them. Go into them blind. Go into NXT on Tuesday night fucking blind.
Yeah.
Cover your fucking eyes, rip your eyeballs out. Don't fucking watch this fucking painful garbage.
But anyhow, that's it for this retro. We're just milking it at this point. Is there anything you want to plug or promote before we end this shitty Raw Underground?
Watch Raw. And Friday night, the tribal chief goes on trial.
Yeah.
Ooh, he's fucked.
By the way, before we didn't do a retrospective on Dabba-Kato. Do you want to do a quick retrospective on Dabba-Kato? Because I forgot.
So he went to Raw as Commander Aziz with Apollo Crews. Didn't do much. They built up a big man match between him and Omos, and he got squashed in fucking a minute and a half. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Someone at least that's a size that could give him a decent match.
Yeah.
Because Dabba-Kato's not complete garbage. And then they fucking squashed him a minute and a half. I was like, oh, great. He's done now. He's dead. He's DOA. And then he went back down to NXT with Apollo, basically. And then during Apollo's match against Carmelo Hayes, after the match, turned on him, which was the complete obvious fucking thing that was going to happen. Just squashed him. And then they had a match, I think. I forget. I think they had a match.
They did. And he won. Dabba-Kato.
And now he's in a feud right now with Axiom and Reggie/Scripps. Because he's either I think he's Scripps of the mask now because he lost the mask against Axiom.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they beat him. So he's useless.
By the way, do you remember, actually, it's the last thing you ever saw in Raw Underground? They built up this big man fight between Braun Strowman and Dabba-Kato. Braun Strowman completely knocked him out in like a minute and stuff like that. Like
that was fucking awful.
But anyhow, that's besides the point. Let's do my plugs. Well, you did your plugs, right? Or no?
Yeah, I did them.
Check out recorded Wednesday, uploaded Thursday, retro for NXT TakeOver London, and then check out the retro with Kane Unmasked, because I'm going to scare Chris again. He's scared already. Recorded Thursday, uploaded Friday. And then check out WWE Aftershock, recorded Saturday, probably up Saturday. Noah and Zero are tackling AEW Spoke this week. They're going to record that tonight, probably be up tomorrow. And then, yeah, I think that's... Oh, and then the Wrestling Rundown Sunday. It'll probably be up Monday. Recorded Sunday, up Monday. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. And we will talk to you guys later. And since this is being recorded in the past, we will talk to you guys in the future.
We doing all the classics, you heard it, then I grabbed it. Flow like Method Man, then run like I'm Rabbit. Soon as I hear the bass line, it be my FaceTime. Music's in my veins, so just in case I'm without my iPod or a media player, I'll check my...